Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I don't know if you can actually see me as well as the screen, but it
We
might
can
help.
see a very small picture of you.
Okay, no problem. Well, as long as you can see the screen, because obviously, yeah, I can't be there, which I'm very, very sorry about. I have symptoms which I just don't want to pass to anybody else, and a very sick child at home as well. So, it would have taken that to keep me away from today, because I have been so excited to deliver this workshop. So we're starting off with the practical part, but I'm just going to do a very quick introduction. So hopefully everyone is going to be able to see my screen as it moves forwards a slide. So we're going to start with how to make your own. And the reason we're starting that way is because you guys are going to actually start the sewing process while you're sat there and while you're listening. Now, I don't think you need to be a great sewer to do this. You need some basic sewing skills. That's obviously, hopefully, something you have, but equally, honestly, you could be a complete newbie, and eventually you would be able to do something like this, because it's pretty simple. So we'll go through that first, and then I will talk to you about the kind of knowledge behind it all, and why it's really important that we really consider using reusables. So the purpose of this workshop is about empowering you to take control of your body. After all, we live in a patriarchy, and we have been told what to do with our bodies for far too long, and it's about time we make decisions for our own body, and at least be given the information, because when we have information, we can make informed choices about what is best for our bodies. So I'm going to inform you about the full range of period products that are available, and not just the ones that we were all told about at school, which are the ones that come in little plastic parcels, and the tampons and things that we see just lined up in the supermarket. So obviously reusables are becoming a lot more mainstream. Probably the last 10 years things have really kicked off, which is really fantastic to see, but what we still are really lagging behind is just the kind of conversation around periods in general. There is still a real period taboo in our society, and despite the fact that, yes, we have come such a long way, and we are a lot more progressive than certainly in certain many cultures that still around the world shame women for having a period. We really do need to start taking bigger, longer strides forward, and really owning our periods, and not being ashamed and not being embarrassed about them. And this isn't just about us, this is about our loved ones too. This is about our children, our grandchildren, our our friends, our other family relatives. We can take the knowledge that we get today and spread this through our community, because if people aren't always going to have access to this information, and trusted voices are what's really important in these conversations. So I'm going to direct you to and even put safer alternatives into your hands today, so that I'm not just going to talk the talk, but we will walk the walk. Okay, I'm going to get straight into the practical. So Ellen, my lovely assistant there, has kindly put out for you some materials and some tools. So you will see that there is 3 different layers. There is one which is the outer layer. Now this is like a fleece material, so you'll see that because it's very soft. It's a bit like the fleece that you have on with blankets, or even some clothing that we choose to wear. This is actually because it does actually contain a bit of plastic fleece material, or at least some can, because wool is actually a kind of natural fleece. And what it is it's naturally water resistant, so water kind of will spill off of it, and that's why that layer sits there. So it's on the outer part. This layer sits furthest away from your skin. So if we look at if Ellen can hold up for you the example that I've made, you'll see that there's 2 sides of the vinyl pad. So there's the side that actually sits away from your skin, which will sit onto your undergarment, your underwear. and that's the fleece part. That's the bit that's sitting on your underwear. So that's not sitting on your skin. I wouldn't want to put that on my skin, just because it might actually be a little bit itchy or something. But anyway, that's the outer layer. So that's very important because it's actually the waterproof part, the part that's going to keep things contained. You can add extra layers in there too. And sometimes when you buy these, they have like a pull material, which is what they put on what do you call them, reusable nappies for babies, but we're not using that today. That does have like a real plastic element to it, and can be a little bit uncomfortable wearing that too, but this will work just as well. Then you've got the middle layer. That's the toweling part. Now this is just toweling. Okay, now I have, as you can probably tell, cut this up from an old towel that I had at home. And that is absorbent, as we know, because when we get out the shower, when we dry ourselves, it absorbs that moisture really well. That middle layer, you can actually put multiple layers in. Today, we're just going to make quite a standard, almost like a panty liner, or just a pad that would be ideal for quite a light flow, maybe towards the end of your period, or if you're suffering with a little bit of light incontinence, that would work well. But you can actually, when you learn this skill, you will go and be able to make different versions of this pad, and you can put 2, 3, even 4 towels in the center of that pad. And then you have the inner layer. This is the layer that sits directly onto your skin. Ideally, you want to use cotton because cotton is natural. Even better still, you'd want to use organic cotton because that is the layer that is touching your skin, and our skin, especially in that area, is very, very absorbent and very, very delicate. So as we know, even with your underwear, you know, sometimes people are very susceptible to thrush, and one of the recommendations for that is to wear cotton underwear. So that's why we want to choose cotton. Now you can use an old t-shirt, you can use an old pillowcase, you could use old sheets that you've got at home. Nothing in this is stuff that you really have to go out and buy. You're welcome to, but everything is something that you can pretty much find at home already. Probably the exception is the snappers or the Velcro. However, I raided my sewing box and actually found snappers, and I also found some bits of Velcro. So I have made a few of these, but I've used different variations of just what I had available at the time. So one time I used snappers, one time I even used a button, and I've used Velcro as well. So as you can see by the shapes, you've got the toweling layer, which is just a long layer, because that's the layer that is going to obviously do the absorbing and needs to sit right onto your skin. But the other layers have got wings attached, and those wings are what fold around your underwear, and you secure them together with that snapper. And so that's why that layer there, you don't want to make that too thick. So the toweling layer doesn't include the shape of the wings. It doesn't need to. It's actually going to fit better to your underwear and not be too bulky as well. So those are the layers, and as I say, you can make this pretty much for free because either you've got the materials at home or you can just raid an op shop, which is what I have done previously, and you'll be surprised at what you can find. Lots and lots of old blankets, or sometimes they just have sections of old materials, and they're usually very cheap. Oh, actually, we'll go back to this. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've pretty much explained this slide here. I just really mostly want to show you the pad shapes, because this really is one of those things. When I first started looking into making them, I thought, well, where do I start? What shape do I go for? And really, it's a personal choice, because they can be made anyway. And if you look online, you will find so many different variations, and there is no right or wrong. It's sometimes a bit of a personal choice. Sometimes it depends on what you're trying to make, what it's for. You can make ones that are really big, and you might want them to be wider in certain areas. So the pad shape just in that bottom right hand corner, that's just a sort of personal preference, really. I found the shape that I went for actually quite simple, and as a starter I would say probably just start with that, and then you could you know, start being a little bit daring and trying some of these other shapes. So you will find that they come in all kinds of shapes. One of the things I've seen online is if you're making this for the first time and really are starting at the, you know, at the beginning of this and want to keep it really simple, is to grab a disposable period pad that you may already have at home, one that works for you, and just trace around that and just go for that. So that really is how simple you can make this, as simple or as, you know, sort of more intricate and skill driven as you want. So my lovely assistant Ellen would also have put a few things on the table for you. Now, you won't need to worry about making the pattern today because I've already made the pattern, and that's what's enabled me to cut out those pieces for you. So if you were starting at home, you would make a pattern to start with. That would be with paper. You'd need a pencil for that, and just a ruler. And you can find patterns online, but if you, and sometimes people sell them. I don't want to spend money, so I didn't do that. I just found that I was able to make a pattern just by sort of researching myself. But equally, I did grab something I already had and sort of went, all right, well, that's roughly what it is, and so that's what mine will be. It really can be, as you know, you can kind of be, there's no right or wrong way to do things really. So there's scissors there, and you'll need that for cutting your cotton when you're sewing, but you will need shearing scissors for textiles when you're doing this, as well as paper scissors to cut out your pattern. You'll need pins that are there on the table for you, and the pattern we're doing today is just using hand sewing, but you can use a sewing machine. If you have one at home, it will make it quicker, but to be honest, hand sewing is quite, I mean, it's just time really, but it will still achieve the same outcome. And you can sometimes, I mean, yeah, it might be neater with a sewing machine, but it's not essential. So going back to the pattern again, now obviously that's not something you're going to worry about today, but that pattern size really can depend on as well what you want to make this for. So if you're starting off, you're just wanting to have, say, a little panty liner, then you're going to go for quite a small size, but they work all the way up to quite a large size, and that's so that you can capture a heavier flow, or if you're using it for something like incontinence, you know, you're going to want a much wider area covered, so that therefore you're going to need a longer and wider piece of fabric for that. So that pattern, you can make that in multiple sizes depending on how many, you know, depending on what you're making. So this is just the overview. So yeah, we've chosen our pattern, we draw our paper pattern. If you can see that, this is what it looks like. It's just a bit of paper, if you can see me holding this up. If not, I've got some other pictures. You pin that to your fabric and use that to draw around, and then you cut your fabric out, and then it's just sewing and adding your snapper. And it really can be very trial and error to start with. You might make a few versions and go, oh wow, that doesn't look great, and you know what, it will still work. It just probably isn't the prettiest to start with, and that's okay. As you do this more and more, you will find that you get better and better. And I absolutely can attest, like, yeah, that this is what happened to me personally, and I'm not a great sewer. So honestly, let that be some validation that if I can do it, anyone can, because I am not a professional seamstress. I don't, you know, I just do basic stuff at home that just mostly is about mending. So if I can do it, then trust me, most people can. So you can, as I said, I've said before about you can buy them online, but it's very possible to make your own, very easy. So that pattern, once you've chosen the size, once you've chosen the shape and the style, one easy way of doing this, it might sound confusing, but when you're cutting it out, see there's a line on those pictures there. When you fold that bit of paper in half and then again in quarter, that can be a really great way of actually cutting the pattern so that you end up with even sides. So that's just a little tip for when you're actually making that pattern. If all that sounds a bit complicated right now, maybe watch a YouTube video. you know, who doesn't watch YouTube to find the answers to, there's so many great videos on YouTube on how to do these things, but it just means that sometimes, you know, if you're doing it freehand, sometimes you can end up with, you know, sort of asymmetry. And if you really want to make a nice symmetrical pad, then folding it in 4 and then cutting it that way just helps to really get that shape, that symmetry in the shape there. Okay. All right. Is there any questions about that so far? Because obviously that part is not what you're having to do today, but does that sound complicated?
No,
Sound okay?
Yeah.
It sounds okay. Yep. Trust me, if you watch a couple of videos as well, you'll be like, oh yes, yeah, that's what she was talking. That's what she was rabbiting on about. So step 2, we're going to pin that paper pattern to our fabric, and that's what I did already for you guys. So I have actually pinned that onto, as you can see at the top there, there's a towel. I traced around it in a Sharpie, and I'm afraid to say you can still see the Sharpie on there, and that's okay. Don't worry about that. The reason I use Sharpie, and a lot of people online will say the same thing, is it just really does help to see it better when you're cutting out on fabric. You can use chalk, you can use pencil, you can use anything really. Some people are so competent that they just literally put it there, pin it on, and cut around it without the need to even draw on it. So it's your choice, but that's what I did. So I used an old towel and cut those bits out, and then for the winged parts, that's what I did. So I just pinned it on, I used the Sharpie to trace around it, and then cut it out, and that's what you have there in front of you. So this is what you're going to be doing, and you can start now, or you can, I mean, actually, what you choose to do today is up to you. So you can either listen and just take away the materials and do this at home, or you can sit there today and do this in a you know, which is, you know, it's completely your choice. I was able to make one of these from start to finish, including cutting everything out, within an hour. But I think given our time, you may not get all the way through it today. You may be a pretty fast sewer, but if not, please don't worry. Take the snappers home with you, because I assure you it wouldn't take much longer to finish it off. So the first thing you're going to do is actually get one of the, choose your colors, and that's totally personal as well. Choose a color fleece, choose a towel. There's no choice there, it's all the same. And choose the cotton material. So you might want it to match, you might want it to not match. I've put different colors just because I know we're all different. So
try a downward angle.
and hopefully you're kind of sat somewhere where you have ideally a table sat in front of you that you can sort of place things down on. Is that all?
Table, because I'll probably pin it to my pen. I'll put the handbag in front of me.
Okay, how are we doing?
Good.
All chosen? Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
So the first thing you're going to do, and you will need some pins, is you're going to pin on the toweling layer, just one is fine for now, onto the back of the cotton material. That's the patterned one that you have there. So that's the very first thing. Now, bear in mind, the reason we're doing this is because you don't want to see the toweling because it fits inside. So if we put that on the front of the pretty pattern, then that's what you'll see when we're finished. So it has to go on the back. We want that to be concealed, sitting inside. So you will pin that on. And then what you will do is you will choose a piece of cotton that you think suits. And really it doesn't matter. You are going to see when you're sewing those stitches. So bear that in mind. You might want to go for, if you've chosen the red fleece, for example, you'll go for the red cotton If you've chosen the blue, then I've put a blue there. So I just thought it might be nice, but you don't have to. You can be a complete rebel and go with blue on red, whatever suits you. But grab yourself some cotton, because you're going to need enough because you're going to sew
Absolutely.
all the way around there, just enough to sew. So you'll have pinned that on. Get yourself some cotton, get yourself a needle, because the next thing you'll do afterwards is you're going to leave roughly a 0.5 centimetre edge to sew all the way around that. And I know that's going to take you some time. So I'll be moving on and I'll be talking through this process. And what's going to happen now is that you'll be obviously back on step 3 when I'm moving forward. But hopefully what you'll be able to do is still listen. And then when we get past the design and instructions on this, I'll also start talking about the other stuff, and you'll still be sewing. But Ellen's going to be there, and she's going to, if anybody has missed a step or encounters an issue, Ellen's got the instructions, so she can go through that with you and point out anything that you need a hand with. So hopefully everyone is going to be all right with that. It would be a bit different if I was there, because obviously I'd be looking over and but hopefully everyone is going to be okay with the way we've planned this. Okay, so yes, that's where we're up to. Toweling on the back of the cotton, pin that on, and then we're sewing all the way around. So that whole circumference is going to have just a simple straight stitch all the way around. And if you were using a sewing machine, obviously you would use your machine to go all the way around, and just make sure it's really secured when you're tying off the cotton. So obviously the stronger your stitch, the more this pad is going to withstand wear and tear, and obviously being washed as well. So bear that in mind as well. And you know, even after you've left and you walk away with a hand sewn pad, you can actually go and do some things to this and actually on your machine at home and add some extra stitches if you wish. So I'm going to move on to the next step. So I do apologize because you are still going to be on this step, because once that toweling layer has been sewn on to the back of your cotton layer, the next step is to place the back of your fleece layer, sorry, the front of your fleece layer to the front of your cotton layer. So you will see the toweling layer sat on top, like in that picture there. Okay, obviously what we're doing is sewing this inside out, and that's what we do with many sewing projects. So we are going to sew that together, and the idea is that when it's sewn together there'll be a little gap and you will fold it the right way round. But what we want to do is make sure that the front, that you'll see the 2 front sides, and with the fleece it's hard to know what the front will be. There's 1 or 2 fleece. I think there's a dark blue fleece I've popped in there, and there's a light blue fleece in there that you will be able to tell what the front is, because the back is quite clearly a much sort of softer non-fleece side. But the red, it can be either side. So you're putting the right side together of both of those, and you're again going to sew all the way around, but this time you're going all the way around the wings, and you're going to hand sew all the way around, but you are going to leave a gap. And if you can see in that picture between A and B, you leave that gap so that you can turn it out. And to be able to turn that out, ideally you want to do a bit of a back stitch at point A and at point B, just to make sure it's secure enough so that when you unfold it, you're not sort of unraveling that sewing that you've done. And again, you kind of want to leave about a 0.5 centimetre, depending on on your edge as well, because you obviously have to just make sure that the 2 layers are being sewn together, because sometimes if you're going around and it's not quite sitting where it should be, you don't want to, you have to make sure that they are definitely sewn together. So if you leave that little bit of a gap all the way around, that's obviously going to ensure that those two sides are together. And when you have to sew point A and B together, if you've got a little bit of extra fabric just on that edge that you've left, it also really helps to just when you're hand sewing that little hole. And I don't know if anyone's sewing experience, but you do this, you know, with lots of things where you have to leave a little gap and then hand sew that afterwards. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
Any questions? Anyone having any issues or blood sugar tests? And then I'm sorry, myself.
Everyone okay?
Yeah, everyone's great. Thanks, guys.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so when we've done that 2 lots of hand sewing, and it will take some time, and we've turned the pad the right way out, you've got to make sure that obviously all the parts are folded out correctly and you get the right shape. So you end up with that exactly the shape, same shape, but it should be a nice winged shape, and now it's all held together nicely. That gap that helped us to unfold it, you then need to sew that gap up. And I don't know if anyone has, you know, you don't need to be precise here. If you know how to do a hidden stitch, that's often the nicer way to sew up a gap. But if you don't, just sew it the way you did with the other stitch. So once you've sewn up that gap, at that point there, you can technically you've finished the sewing, but some people like to add an extra stitch all the way around the edge of the pad for extra reinforcement. Now I've just put this picture up here to show you, this is obviously on a machine, that at that point this person has done a stitch all the way around the pad, but they've also added it down the sides where the toweling is and extra. So anything extra that any extra sewing that you do at this point is all about reinforcement. And sometimes I've seen it where they add a little pattern in. So sometimes it can be for decoration too. So it does definitely add extra reinforcement, but it's not necessary. And in the example that I gave to Ellen to bring to show you, that one hasn't got an extra stitch in it. So the very last thing you have to do with it is add the snappers. And I don't know if anyone has ever added a snapper before, but it's a little bit like adding a button. So there's little holes and you just sew up into the hole and around into the next hole. So it's very similar to adding a button on. And as I mentioned before, you don't have to use snappers. You can use Velcro if that's what you have or it's what suits you. I've seen, yeah, you could even add a button, which with actually I don't actually see me holding this up, but I've got one with a button on that I just thought I'd try out. I used a little bit of elastic that I just
not touching the fan
box, and then a little button there. You may find this a little bit.
On the outside.
It may be a little bit uncomfortable with a button, but it probably isn't too bad. It's a trial and error thing, as I say. So with the snappers, you can add obviously a pair, one, or I've seen pads where there are, you know, two pairs. So it's really a choice. And also if you've made a very large pad, you may need extra snappers. The only thing I will say about adding the snappers is do make sure that you are definitely adding them in the right place. So when you've finished your pad, fold it the way it would sit in your underwear, and make sure that you put one popper on one side of the material and that it's underneath on the other side, so it sits over the top like in the picture there. So make sure you test that before you actually stitch it in. And one way to also show where you want it is to just put a little pin in where you actually want it, just so you know where to place it. Otherwise, if you've got it in the wrong place and you try and put that in your underwear, it might sort of end up, you know, making the pad sort of not sit right in your underwear. So that's just to ensure that they meet okay, and that it's the right side, and that you've definitely put the right snapper and that it definitely snaps into the right side, because that's the other thing with those snappers is there's definitely one side and another side, and they definitely you don't want to put two of the same parts, otherwise they won't actually snap together. If you can actually buy some snapper or popper tools from places like Lincraft and no doubt Spotlight and any other sort of crafting shops really that deal with sewing supplies. So that's another option. With the snappers that I'm using, you'll probably see in the picture there, and Ellen's got that particular pad there, that you can see the stitch where the snapper's been attached. And so if you don't like that and you would prefer a sort of cleaner, nicer popper, like in one I'm holding up here, it's got a plastic or metal sometimes sort of edge on one side. That is achieved if you get one of these popper tools. So again, if this is something you really want to take on, they're not that expensive. I would say get yourself one of those, because you will end up with a nicer end finish. And so that is it. That is absolutely it. And it really, so it's not that complicated. It's probably just that it's going to take, you guys there a bit of time just to do the hand sewing. And actually, I think the end product is really quite pretty. And they can store quite nicely too. I think, Ellen, in the stuff I gave you, there's like a little pocket thing that I put in, which is an example of where you can put a used one. If you're out and about and you're wearing one of your reusables, people often say that that's something that they worry about. What do I do if I need to change, or what do I do with it? So you can even make these little sort of waterproof bags, or you can get them. And actually, what I did when after I'd had my babies, because they had cloth nappies, was that I just used their cloth nappy bags. I used lots of things that actually had come from their cloth nappy supplies for myself, because at the time I was just like, well, that makes sense. It's doing the same job essentially. So you can, when you're out and about and you've finished wearing one and you need to change, you just pop it into a little bag like that, and it will close up, and you can just put that away in your bag until you get home. So some other sort of tips and care for it. I've already mentioned that you can hand sew versus machine. You're probably going to get a little bit more security and reinforcement when you use a machine, but you're still going to get the same end product. And really, the hand sewing can be a game changer if we're talking about, someone on a budget, for example, or if you're out and about. These are real stories coming out of our surveys and things from even around Australia. There are people that are actually struggling to afford period wear. Imagine if we were to teach menstruating people a simple pattern that could help them make something like this, and they can make it in an hour. I mean, imagine the luxury of having that. It would save them a small fortune, I would say. So you absolutely, as I said before, you do not need to be an expert to make these. Every time you make one, you will get better and better. You can make them for you. You could make them for your friends. You can make them for family. Hey, I even think it would be okay to give these as a gift. I would. It's a game changer for people. Now, one of the other things that people ask about is washing them. Now, obviously, they have to be washed. When you finish wearing one, the best thing to do straight away, if you can, but obviously if you're out, that's not going to be possible, excuse me, is to pre-rinse. Now you can use like a nappy bucket type system, like if you use cloth nappies, you could put it into a bit of a pre-rinse with a natural soap, or even just cold water. And that just, if you can give it a little bit of a rinse at that point, and then so soak them and wring them out dry until the water runs clear, then it's just going to prevent any major staining. Some people that really doesn't matter to them, it's not a big deal, but obviously for longevity of these pads, you're probably not going to want to have stains. Then when you're ready to wash it, and in some cases for me it might not be for a few days, I will then put it into the machine and wash them. I usually do everything at 30 degrees, so that's fine. And then another thing with staining that can be great, especially in the summer, is when you're hanging them out to dry, the sun is also a very good stain remover. Do not tumble dry, especially some pads that have a pull material in them. But with tumble drying, it's also just about the sort of wear and tear on the fabrics as well, because you've also got fleece in there, so that's not ideal. So always best to dry them outside, or even if you've got somewhere inside that they can just sort of lay over to dry, they wouldn't take that long to dry. Everyone okay? Because I'm going to move on to the information section. So I'm sure this is all very, very
it'd be like a jersey cotton, would be a pull fabric, something that stretches when you sew it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, was that a question? No. Oh, sorry, I just heard something.
Yeah, the question was, what is a pull fabric?
A cool fabric. Anything that is cotton is cooler for the skin. Any natural products.
Pull.
Natural materials. Oh, pull. What is pull?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it said cool. Yeah. So pull is if you have a look at that bag that Ellen was just showing you before, it's in the pack. It's like a sort of waterproof material. It's almost plasticky. So it's what they use on cloth nappies. So it's a completely waterproof material. It's almost like a plastic, and that's always on well, not always, but it's mostly on cloth nappies on the outside of them to contain all of that, because there's a lot more mess in those things, as we know. And sometimes you will find that they are on period pads that you buy. Not always, but in some cases they will actually be in there, and it just is a way to ensure that you are containing all liquids within it, because it is a sort of plastic material. The thing that I always think about with that is just that it can actually make you feel a bit sweaty, so especially in the summer, because it's not breathable. So that's why it's not included in this design, and it's not essential. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
That's okay, no problem at all. Sorry, I can't hear that well, so Ellen, if you let me know if there's a question, because I was just chatting. I didn't hear it first. Is it okay to move on to this?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm pretty sure everybody, I can't see my audience, but hopefully everybody knows about this stuff. But you know what? It doesn't hurt to have a little revise anyway. Refresh. So the average age to start menstruation is 12, but most people's periods start between 8 and even 17. In many cases, we kind of have to be accepting nothing is really normal these days. It's your normal, but we also have sort of some correlation nowadays between diets and exposure to various other things just in our environment that can mean that periods are either starting much earlier or delayed. So every month, the ovaries, which are in that picture just there, the ovaries, every month they will release an egg. So they produce the eggs, and this is called ovulation. Now, if you are very, very in sync with your body, you'll know when your body is ovulating. Often you'll feel, you may feel it. You may be in sync with the moon, for example. You may know that on a half moon, that's when you're ovulating. Or actually, is it a full moon? Sorry, I can't remember which way around it is. But if you are in sync with the moon, then you'll know just based on the moon. And the other symptoms are sort of a discharge. Now, if you've ever tried to have a baby, believe me, you'll know when you're ovulating. So you really pay attention to those signs, because it's critical, because ovulation is when you've got your egg released from your ovaries. It's making its way down the fallopian tube, and at that point then we need a sperm, because that's when a sperm will fertilize that egg, and it will implant in the womb. and your body has made a baby and it will grow inside your womb. But in most cases, every month, that egg does not encounter a sperm, often intentionally, because we don't want that to happen sometimes. And so what happens is the body is still doing its thing, preparing for that implantation of an egg. The womb has thickened in preparation for that. Because it didn't get fertilized, what happens is it's expelled through the body, and we get all of that lining of the womb expelled as well, so through the vagina. So if the yes, it is shed through the vagina along with the lining of the womb, and this is what period blood is. So it's not blood that our body has needed. It's not a bad thing. It's not a hurt. It's not a painful thing. It's just the body said, I didn't need this, and so it is getting rid of that. And so a period will usually last for 3 to 8 days, and so obviously, again, we're going to see so many different variations. There is at this point so many people that mentioned, I've run workshops before where people say, oh, well, mine don't last that long and mine lasts this long. You're going to really see some different, conversations and variations here. But I'll talk about that within this as well. So knowing our body and knowing our body parts is also really important. And as a parent of a 10-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl, I think today we're encouraged to use the true anatomical terms for our parts. So we call our for the boy we call it our penis, and for a girl it's our vagina. And so if we have a look here at the image, these are all the parts of our wonderful female form. So you may not have been familiar, or you may be very familiar with these parts, and you might want to have a look in a mirror, or you may just know from images like this what all these parts are. But discussing and understanding these can be really helpful for understanding our bodies and when things are normal and when things are abnormal. So have a look at all those parts there. So the mons pubis, urethra, which is where our urine comes out, the outer labia and the inner labia. And that's interesting because if we look at different reusable period wear, you can actually buy labia pads, which can actually sit within the labia and can actually capture that sort of any fluids, and they're just another option for period wear. We have our clitoris, vagina, the vulva, and the anus. So all of those parts there are quite useful, because when we're even just for when we're talking about period wear and where we place things. And so that the other image I've put there is again what I've gone through with the menstrual cycle. So all the different phases, the follicular, of ovulatory, luteal, all those different phases, and they're really quite wonderful because they explain so much about people that menstruate, and we have to be a lot more accepting about why our bodies perform the way they do, why if particularly if you are menstruating and you have all your hormones, you will definitely identify with this kind of cycle that isn't a 24-hour clock, 7-day a week cycle that our society exists and runs on. Actually, it runs on a 28-day cycle. We really are a magical, wonderful species, and we everything every day is different within that cycle. You will crave different foods, you will feel different ways, your body will want to do certain things on certain days, like socializing. Other days, no, not so much. And all of that is all by design. Your body is just wonderfully working its way through that cycle each and every day. So anyways, let's have a look at some of the things as well that are causing some of these societal problems. One of them is the very word sanitary. Everything is, when we're talking about period wear, often we hear the word sanitary wear, which suggests somehow that periods are dirty, that you need something sanitary because it's dirty. And that's something that's really sort of been called out in a lot of, a lot of empowering period poverty environment groups, and particularly ones I was working with in the UK. This was something we were trying to kind of stamp out a little bit. It's period wear. We're not using different words for different things anymore. It's a vagina. We have periods, and we're not ashamed of that. So, as I said before, women and girls around the world still have to hide their periods. They have to miss school. In some cultures it is so, and it's just about a lack of knowledge, it's fear of the unknown, but they are shunned even, to huts to stay away. It's the devil. It's just it's education. So the more we educate ourselves and people around us, the more we won't be fearful of this. But the other thing that seems to be alarmingly happening is more and more people are being subjected to period poverty. So this is a global issue. We know that there are menstruating people all over the world that struggle to pay for period wear. But even in rich countries, rich nations like Australia and the UK, where I was living before and running this period program, there is a huge issue affecting people in these rich countries, sort of up to I think it was 40% of people experiencing period poverty in the UK. Now, we haven't quite captured the full extent of it over here. We do have some survey results, and we've got some state results that we know, but we do know that this is happening, and that people are it's becoming disproportionately impactful on poorer and lower socioeconomic communities, and also if I show you the next slide, I think it is, oh no, it'll be the one afterwards. We're seeing it hugely impact on younger people, so people that are in TAFE and universities, as well as Aboriginal communities as well. So over 500 million people are thought to face period poverty across the world. You may have heard of Share the Dignity. They actually are a pretty impactful organisation, and you will probably have seen their free vending machines in lots and lots of places now, even here in Ballarat. There's one in Berkeley Square, for instance, and there could even be one in the library that you're in there. So they actually do run programs to make sure that they are putting free period wear into people's hands. Now, the Share the Dignity doesn't just provide disposables, they can also provide reusables as well, and they actually ask for donations through their programs as well. So you can donate any kinds of period wear to their programs, and they obviously distribute them out. They also did. Oh, is that a question? All good? Is that a question? No,
just a comment. They've got it in Dalesford High School.
Perfect, amazing. Yes. A lot of high schools have signed up for the Share the Dignity now, and even I mean, years ago, that wasn't available, but now in most schools, most TAFEs, most universities, somebody can go and speak to, if there isn't a known vending machine, you can usually go somewhere to get some for free. The Share the Dignity actually did a big survey in 2024. They do one every 3 years, and they found that 64% of Australian menstruators have found it difficult to buy period products, and close to 30% have worn a tampon for more than 4 hours due to cost. Now, the reason that's actually alarming is because tampons can actually cause some health problems, and when you wear them for too long, that risk increases. So that's actually meaning that they're putting their health at risk there. So as I said, we're finding people in workplaces, schools, TAFE and universities. And the cost of period wear, roughly $10 per month, but I've actually seen that be disproportionately higher, particularly with people that have medical conditions such as endometriosis, and that might mean because they are bleeding a lot more than normal, and so they're having to go through a lot more period wear than normal. Oopsie, sorry. Okay, so here's a quick question for you. How much money does the average person spend on disposable period products each year? Who wants to throw a guess? What do you reckon? $60 a year? 100? I'll submit that.
180 easy.
180, yep. So I think what I'll do is go back. So It is 108. It's closer to $180. And I'm sorry, it's not telling us that the now I can't. Yeah, it is. It's closer to $180 per year. So that can be. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but for some people, that really is the difference between. I mean, some months that really can be the difference between buying food or buying your period wear. So that's where it becomes an issue. This isn't just something. Oh, now my screen's not moving forward, and I think it's probably because of this. Oh, all right, let's go. There we go. So how much money can be saved in our lifetime by switching to homemade period pads? What do we think?
Thousands. Yeah.
Thousands?
6,750 for sure out of those options.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money there, isn't it? I think I'd rather spend that on other things. And hey, how is that fair? You know, that's only affecting half the
Yeah, I
population.
spend 6,000 more than my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should earn more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
We need more stuff.
It kind of empowers you as a woman, doesn't it? Kind of go, wait there, what the heck? That's not fair, is it? So as this was some of the results from the Bloody Big Survey as well. I love that title, Bloody Big Survey. So 83% of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders have struggled to afford period products. 78% of those with a disability or chronic condition have struggled to afford period products, and 83% of the gender diverse community have struggled to afford period products. What this tells us is that there's definitely a disproportionate impact to certain communities. And, you know, it may not necessarily be impacting on us now, but sure, there may have been a time. I remember when I was a student, it definitely was. I have been in a situation, and I'm not ashamed to say it, where I had to use a tea towel. I actually bought a really cheap tea towel from a shop and cut it up to use as a period wear. So that's when I, you know, it, and it is, you kind of go, I mean, at the time I thought it was genius. I was like, I'm so resourceful. But do we really think that's appropriate? I mean, you know, I just think that the fact that I was struggling in itself is the issue. So how many period products can people who menstruate use in a lifetime? There's another question for you. How many period products can you use?
11, yeah.
That's very good.
11,000, you reckon?
Yeah.
You would be correct.
Going whatever's highest.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind, I mean, I think
I'm just kind of calculating in my head.
I can't remember what the daily
6
use is.
pads a day,
Maybe 4.
if it's 7 days.
Yeah.
Times that by, 12 periods a year.
Yeah. And here's the issue with that. This is when we start talking about the other issues, which is the environment, and we talk about the waste and all the other knock-on effects of that. So we're going through an awful lot of these products, and a lot of them are made of plastic as well. So I think I will get through to that part in a moment. How much of a single-use disposable period pad is thought to be plastic? What do you reckon? How much of a single use?
I would say 0, but it's not there.
No.
0 is not an option.
So these are the disposable period pads. What do you
How much
reckon?
is plastic?
Oh, 50%.
Oh.
Who said 90?
90. No, really? Not 90.
90%. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, it's scary, hey? How many plastic bags worth of plastic can a typical pack of disposable period products contain? How many plastic bags? worth
At
of
least
plastic?
5 to 7.
Did mine once. So did you turn yours as on?
I'll go for 5. I can't remember
so
actually
five.
myself.
So
Five.
we'll let mine up there.
So that's
Okay.
another,
I
that's
just
sort of
thought- I just-
a good visual for you. That's how many plastic bags So we could, you know, we're trying our best. Everyone's trying their best. We've got our reusable bags and we're doing, and then, but I think the thing that worries me the most about this is just the fact that all that plastic is so close to our skin. That's what I think the biggest issue here is. How many period products are thought to be flushed each year, flushed down the loo?
Oh, too many.
Yeah.
Probably too many.
Yeah.
I think we could even be up here, but I'll 2 million.
We'll
go for that one.
It's billion, I'm disgusted.
I think we're more up here, 2
Oh,
billion.
No.
2 billion. So we have
Yeah.
actually surveyed. There's been a fair amount of surveying, asked people about what they do, and most people have no idea that you can't flush tampons down the loo. Now, even people are flushing period pads down the loo, but tampons, most people do not know that you cannot flush them down the loo. So there's a lot of it is plastic, and they're also designed to expel, to get wider and bigger with fluid. So can you imagine what that's doing in a sewage system? So that's causing an enormous amount of harm in the sewage system. So I'm going to have to race through some of this now because I'm just looking at the time, thinking that this is meant to finish at 11:30. If anybody, would you like me to carry on and just get through, or what would you like? What should I do, Ellen? Because some of this is actually a little bit. I haven't probably got that. I've got a fair bit to go.
Most of us are still sewing, Grace, so
We're still
It's up-
selling.
depending how
happy-
many slides you have still.
Well, how about you give me a kind of heads up when, all right, I think we're done now, because I don't obviously, but I will be
Okay.
going over if you're happy for me to.
All right, I'll let you know when we're
Okay.
close to
I'm going to race through
finishing.
some of this because we've already talked about this. I mean, just a couple of little facts though. I mean, a plastic tampon applicator is used for 10 seconds. You use it for 10 seconds and then it lasts forever. So as we know, plastic takes many, many years, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of years to actually break down. So using a menstrual cup, for example, results in a 99% reduction in waste compared to single-use products. So we know that we're throwing a lot of these pads away. We're generating 200,000 tonnes of waste each year, around 22 disposable sanitary items each cycle. So that's how many we're per person. So we're making up one wheelie bin worth of period products each year, just in our period products. They take hundreds of years to break down. Up to 90% of the pad can be plastic. Tampons shed roughly 9.4 billion microplastic pieces. And this plastic waste kills seabirds, sea mammals, marine turtles, and fish each year. So it's really, it's pretty sad, all of this as well. The other problem is this going into the waste system, going into our sewage system. We know that people are flushing them. This really needs to be something that we talk more about, because I can remember personally, my sister used to flush tampons when she was a teenager. It cost my parents a fortune when our toilets got blocked and we had a massive sewage overspill, and our whole garden was full of our sewage waste, including like almost like a river full of tampons. So at least we knew who it was, because it was the evidence was there. So in order to protect our rivers, our seas, and our beaches, we really need to start making sure that either that we don't use them or that we are not flushing them down the toilet. So about half of people are flushing them down the toilet. And period products make up 11% of sewage-related debris. So the only thing we should be flushing down our toilets are pee, poo, and paper. Okay, now here's a quick question. We're moving on to health. This is the thing that really drives me in when I'm teaching this subject. So disposable period products, as well as all the plastic and the cost. What do we know with these disposable period products? Which conditions have they been linked to? Which of the following health conditions? Does anyone know? We have endometriosis, cancer, and asthma. So we've got an endometriosis, we've got cancer, I've heard. What else? Because this is a bit of a trick question, because what am I going to tell you?
Because
All of them. all of them.
Yeah.
So that's the scary thing that I think we just need to talk more
How does
about.
that come?
How does things?
It's pretty shocking, isn't it? So a toxic cocktail of chemicals have been found in single-use disposable period pads and tampons. The pesticides, for example, that are used from cotton crops. So that's a huge issue, the pesticides. Then there's also the synthetic fragrances. And these alone can be a cocktail of about 300 chemicals that can contain carcinogens. Carcinogens are cancer-causing chemicals. Allergens, which can cause reactions, irritants, and endocrine disrupting chemicals. So your endocrine system is your hormones. So all those hormones that do all those wonderful things in our bodies can also be disrupted. So endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, all those big words there are all linked to things like cancer, reproductive and developmental disorders, birth defects, asthma and allergies, and as well as being linked to reproductive health conditions such as endometriosis. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is that the skin of the vagina, as I mentioned before, is extremely absorbent. So we are putting these products, not only are they drenched in chemicals, but they are going onto an extremely absorbent area. And the really scary part is there is not really good enough regulation on and over period products. And that's really something that needs to improve. So we may say, oh, but we're only using them once a month, or it's this, or the thing that we have to bear in mind with these sort of cocktail effect, or the cocktails is, we call it the cocktail effect, is because what's happening is that it's more than just our period products, because we're being exposed to toxins everywhere in our environment, in our food, the sky, the water. There's lots and lots of ways that we're being exposed to toxins. So what happens is we get an accumulation of these toxins within our fat tissue, and this is called a cocktail effect. This is just yet another exposure for our bodies, and worse still because it's going into such a highly absorbent area. So synthetic fragrances and scents interfere with the balance of good and bad bacteria in our vulvas, and this can also create an irritation, and that can make it easier to contract sexually transmitted infections as well. So yet another thing we have to deal with, as well as things like thrush. So all of those things can actually cause irritation in that area. So none of these chemicals are listed on the packet. There is no legal mandate that says they have to, and that's actually a loophole in many, many products that we are being exposed to. When you see that term fragrance, often that means, oh my gosh, there is a whole host of other chemicals and ingredients that one word is the umbrella of. So if the same level of fragrance was found in cosmetic products as found in period products, it would require mandatory labeling. So we really do have a bit of a loophole in this with period wear. Some of the other gynecological conditions that we are really seeing a lot of people being affected by these days, and this may be because of the use of these products, but it's also as many, many reasons within our lifestyles and genetics as well. So endometriosis, premenstrual syndrome, polycystic ovaries, toxic shock syndrome. There's lots and lots of other symptoms. You may have an absence of periods, a bad period, heavy periods. Pain is not normal in a period. Do not ever ignore it, and always ask for help. One thing that I can tell you from experience is that you will be told it's normal or you're imagining it. Don't ever be told that. Always push for answers. So we really do. A period should be something that we own, we love, we are proud of. And so if you are experiencing these things, please do see a doctor and push for answers. And if you can't, look for them yourselves until you are satisfied with the solution, with the answer and the solution. So some of those alternatives, obviously, you are making one yourself today. This one that we're making is an external type of period wear, but you also can get internal ones as well. And you can buy disposable. You can actually buy safe disposable ones. And then obviously you've got reusables. So anything internal is what goes into the vagina. And so typically we know there are tampons, but the safer alternative of that would be an organic, and you would really need to be careful that it is definitely a sort of endorsed organic product, but a cotton organic reusable tampon. But you can even buy reusable tampons as well, so that's worth investigating if that's a choice, if you prefer to use tampon type period wear. But the other option, and people rave about them, is the cup, the period cup. And there is one that I brought down for you to have a look at if anyone is interested. So if you would like to have a look at that at some point while you're there, there is actually one, and there will be a picture on one of the slides to come. And then anything external, the things that go inside the underwear. So we've got pads. You can even buy period knickers today. So So switching to organic products for just 2 periods could save enough water for one person for 900 days. So even just buying slightly more ethical products can actually be better for the environment as well as better for your health. The only thing I can tell you is that it may not be better for your wallet to buy in that way. If that's not an issue for you, then that's then I definitely say that that is better than the other products, but it's not necessarily going to be the cheapest option to do it that way. So these pictures up here, those are up in the top. That's a reusable tampon. You've got a cup. The lady is holding a pink reusable cup there. I don't know if you can see because they're actually a terrible color against the white, almost white background, but those are labia pads in the bottom left-hand corner. That's a labia pad. And next to that in blue, you've got a reusable pad. There's a little product there that it says Dame on it. That is a reusable tampon applicator. So that way you're not having to ever throw those applicators away. And then finally, that's another cup or a disc. It's called a menstrual disc. And that's another internal period product that you place inside. So those are whole conversations that we won't have time for today, but those are different options for you. And we've talked a little bit about taking care of those pads as well. So I've already covered that for you. Now, in terms of where to access reusables, if you're really considering or we want to tell others about accessing a reusable period wear, do look on the City of Ballarat website, because they currently run, they have a 50%, they will give you a 50% rebate. Obviously, you'll need a receipt for reusable period wear up to $100. So do look into that. It's definitely worth stocking up with that scheme. Also, if you want, yeah, you're really useful. Yeah. And Go Vita, for example, there's another shop in town that sells reusables.
Reusable period wear.
Obviously making your own is an option. Then you've got the Share the Dignity vending machines. And if you are a student, do go and speak to your table, your university or your school about them giving you free period wear, but specify that you would like free reusable period wear so that you can access those ones if that's your preference. I have finished. So, okay, I have covered everything I wanted to cover, and you guys are still probably doing a great job sewing. So I'd love if you've got any questions, if you just shoot through any questions, if you have any.
Any questions for Grace?
Yep.
Finishing there for on, so
You got that far.
we had a speedy couple of hours that finished shows about halfway through. How's everyone else going? Dani, did you finish? Oh.
I think that was always going to be the risk, was just how long it would take to sew. So I do apologize. I think what you will find is that after the first time, it will get so much quicker. But what I really hope is that I have sort of shown you just how simple it is to make, and that even if you don't finish it today, that it's something that you would be able to take home and finish quite quickly. Hopefully nothing, if anyone feels that they're going to struggle with that, I personally will get better quickly and help you get it finished, because I want you to obviously feel empowered that you can make this yourself. That is my most that's like my key aim, is just to make sure that you see how easy this can be. Not necessarily easy. I think you have to put an element of effort in, obviously a bit of time, but what hopefully this would do for somebody is, once you've made this, and let's say you know, some of these pads, I've had period pads for probably the last 5 years, using the same ones for, you know, 5 years now, and if you take care of them, you know, don't do anything too outrageous with them, you know, they could last even a bit longer than that, I'd say. I mean, period knickers are said to last up to 10 years, and a period pad sort of this, you know, 5 years, but sometimes in my case I've got some that have lasted longer. I don't think I've ever thrown one away, to be honest. So if, you know, that little bit of effort that you can put in will really pay off. Now, my daughter's 8, and I know that probably in the next couple of years or so that she will come, you know, we're already having this conversation about periods, and I talk to my daughter really openly about periods. She says, oh, you know, she asks me questions about them, we talk about them, and I talk about, you know, the importance of a good diet, for instance, and staying hydrated, and how, you know, mummy uses reusables, and that way, you know, I talk about everything to do with them. And you know, she said at times early on, you know, oh, I don't want to have one, and because she doesn't like blood, my daughter. So I've talked about, you know, the fact that it's not blood because you're hurting, it's not blood because you're in pain or that you've been cut or injured, it's blood your body doesn't want anymore. So I've been able to answer those questions because I understand this, and I feel so empowered to be able to answer those questions for my daughter, and one day hopefully my you know, grandchildren, and friends and family, for example. And I already have started to collect fabrics, so that when she has her first period, she will get the cutest, loveliest little reusable pads for her, and it'll be almost like a, you know, a sort of fashion accessory for her. You know, she'll get to choose what she wants. It will be so exciting for her. I want her to feel like this is such a special moment for her and not something to be scared of. So that's where I feel that power, that empowerment is really coming into play, and I'm really like grateful to be able to give that to my daughter. And I hope you feel in some way that you might be able to do that with yourself or with someone you love or know as well. But anyway, if no one has any questions, I'm here for, you know, however long you need me. But thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it and has been able to take something away.